Look, the word brothers here. These brothers are no other than Isaac and Ishmael. Look, the word God is saying, I will put my words in his mouth. Didn't God send Gabriel to recite the Quran directly to Muhammad? And the list goes on and on and on from there. Obviously, I wanted to tackle this not just by myself, but I brought two of the super weapons when it comes to Islamic apologetics.
Super weapons.
David Wood and Sam Shamoun.
Yep.
Guys, you've heard this many times.
Oh yeah, and if you watch lectures by Muslim apologists, Zakir Naik will go on for an hour trying to show how this prophecy was fulfilled about Muhammad. I will raise up for them a prophet like you. God is talking to Moses here, a prophet like you, like Moses. And so Naik will spend large amounts of time going through ways that Muhammad is like Moses. Muhammad is like Moses. Look, I mean, think about this. They're both prophets, but simultaneously military leaders, right? Most prophets aren't military leaders. And so you see these comparisons, and he'll go through all these different aspects of the life of Muhammad and find a parallel in the life of Moses to show that Muhammad is indeed the prophet who was like Moses, and therefore the fulfillment of this prophecy, and therefore Islam is true. Now, Sam, are there any problems with this argument?
Yeah, as you can see, I get really excited when I find my scriptures twisted in such a shameless manner. But what we need to first note is why God is making this promise of raising up a prophet like Moses. Let's read Deuteronomy 18, 15, 16 carefully. Deuteronomy 18, 15 to 16. The Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet from the midst of you. The midst of who? The Ishmaelites or the Israelites?
The Israelites.
From their own midst, okay? Of your brothers like me. You must listen to him. This is according to all that you desired of the Lord your God in Horeb on the day of assembly, saying, now here's the key. Why is God going to raise up prophets after Moses for Israel? Because this is what they asked of Moses to ask God. This is what Israel said. Let me not hear again the voice of the Lord my God, nor let me see this great fire anymore, so that I do not die. If you go back to Exodus 19 and Exodus 20, you'll note that God appeared in a cloud and they heard the voice. The voice was so terrifying, so traumatic for the Israelites that they begged Moses, you speak to us, don't let God speak to us anymore. And God then says in 17, the Lord said to me, they have done well in what they have said. And then 18, I will raise up a prophet from among their brothers like you, and I will put my words in his mouth, and he will speak to them all that I've commanded. So what's the point? Instead of me appearing visibly in a cloud, and instead of them hearing my voice audibly, from now on, I'm going to raise up a prophet like you, Moses, to speak on my behalf to them so they don't have to hear from me directly. Now, how in the world can this be applicable to an Ishmaelite prophet, because they claim he's a son of Ishmael, that comes 2,200 years after the promise is given? Now, beyond that, the Torah tells us what a prophet like Moses is, and it's not Muhammad. Let's go to Deuteronomy 34, 10 to 12 to see the criteria. What is the criteria by which we can know whether a prophet is like Moses or not? Deuteronomy 34, 10 to 12. Since then, there has not arisen a prophet in Israel like Moses. And by the way, this is before Joshua's commission. Some people take this as even excluding Joshua. No, this is the end of Moses' life. But when you go to Joshua 1, there you see that Joshua now becomes a prophet like Moses if you read it carefully and contextually. But be that as it may, since then, there has not arisen a prophet in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. That's part of the criteria. The prophet like Moses has to have an intimate, face-to-face relationship with the Lord God. Last time I checked, I'm not aware of any Muslim claiming that Allah appeared in time and space, especially in visible form, to speak directly to Muhammad. Is there anything like that?
And even Aisha, remember, in one of the traditions says, if anyone says that Muhammad saw his Lord, he's lying.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. So, but according to this criterion, the prophet will have a face-to-face relationship with the Lord. Now, when you study the Torah, how did God deal with Moses? He appeared to him in visible form and spoke to him directly. A face-to-face relationship. Something that no Muslim claims happened between Allah and Muhammad, at least in time and space. We can get into the Miraj some other time, but then again, here's the other part of the criteria. And all the signs and wonders which the Lord sent him to do in the land of Egypt. So here is the twofold criteria. face-to-face relationship with God and do miracles and signs like Moses did. Lo and behold, the Quran itself testifies Muhammad cannot be the prophet like Moses, because in chapter 28, verse 48 of the Quran, and I'll read 49 for good measure. Chapter 28, verses 48 to 49, notice what it says. But when the truth, i.e. Muhammad, with his message, has come to them from us, they say, now notice what the unbelievers say to Muhammad, why is he not given the like of what was given to Moses? So they're asking, okay, you claim to be a prophet, you say you're like Moses, how come we don't see the signs that Moses performed for Israel if you're a prophet like him? So what is his response? Did they not disbelieve in that which is given to Moses of old? They said two kinds of magic, each assisting the other.
Right.
Both we are disbelievers. So catch what the unbelievers are telling Muhammad. You, sir, are not like Moses because we don't see any miracles like Moses performed during the time when God sent him to Israel. So how in the world can you be a prophet like Moses? So the Quran testifies, no miracles like Moses, and Muhammad never spoke to Allah face to face in time and space in a visible form as witnessed by multitudes of people.
That's right.
So, looks like Muhammad is ruled out by the very meaning of what it means to be a prophet like you. In other words, we're not talking about whether he was a military leader or something like that. The Bible gives you the meaning of how this was understood during the time of Moses, and therefore what the text is actually saying about the prophet who's going to be like Moses. So those are the criteria according to the Bible there as far as recognizing who the real prophet is. But interestingly, the same passage also gives us criteria of how to spot a false prophet. The same passage. So that's Deuteronomy 18, verse 18.
Right.
Tells you prophets coming like
It's funny how
like
they
Moses.
don't keep reading, right?
Yeah. Just 2 verses later. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and read 18 through 20 so people understand the context. So God's talking to Moses and says, I will raise up for them a prophet like you from among their brothers, and I will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak to them all that I command him. And whoever will not listen to my words that he shall speak in my name, I myself will require it of him. Next verse. Deuteronomy 18, verse 20. But the prophet who presumes to speak a word in my name that I have not commanded him to speak. In other words, if a prophet delivers a revelation, says, I have a revelation, and that revelation didn't actually come from God,
Right.
watch this. The prophet who presumes to speak a word in my name that I have not commanded him to speak, or who speaks in the name of other gods, someone who promotes polytheism, that same prophet shall die. That same prophet shall die. So here we have 2 criteria of someone who is guaranteed to be a false prophet. We're told what it means to be like Moses. We have certain criteria of someone who's going to be like Moses. But we also have criteria of a false prophet. Here's how you know this is not the guy. That this is not the guy I'm referring to. We have 2 criteria. If you deliver a revelation that didn't actually come from God, or you speak in the names of other gods, you promote polytheism. Why is this interesting? Well, because Muhammad did both. Muhammad meets both of these criteria of a false prophet who is guaranteed not to be the true prophet of Deuteronomy 18:18. How did this happen? Well, he did both of them with one incident in history. Let me go ahead and read a Muslim source. And there are lots of Muslim sources on this. In fact, remember I used to say that there were, I had 30-some sources on the Satanic verses?
Exactly.
That number is now up to 50. I now have 50 Muslim sources on the story of the Satanic verses. Shahab Ahmed published a book before his death, giving the 50 sources. We'll have to be doing a
Sahih
more on
Mursal.
that.
That's right. So they're sound.
Yeah, we'll have to do some work on those in the future. But I'll just give you the basic story from the history of At-Tabari. So this is a Muslim source. One of the first great Muslim scholars was
commentator.
That's right, one of the best.
Tabari. So I'll go ahead and read the passage. This is from the History of At-Tabari, Volume 6, page 108. It says, when the messenger of God saw how his tribe turned their backs on him and was grieved to see them shunning the message he had brought to them from God, he longed in his soul that something would come to him from God, which would reconcile him with his tribe. So Muhammad becomes a prophet. His tribe rejects him because they worship false gods. And Muhammad was longing for some revelation from God that would bring his people to them. Well, he got it. With his love for his tribe and his eagerness for the welfare it would have delighted him if some of the difficulties which they made for him could have been smoothed out. And he debated within himself and fervently desired such an outcome. Then God revealed, by the star when it sets, your comrade does not err, nor is he deceived, nor does he speak out of his own desire. And when he came to the words, have you thought upon Alat and Alusa and Manat? These are three pagan goddesses of his tribe. And when he came to the words, have you thought upon Alat and Alusa and Manat, the third, the other? Satan cast on his tongue because of his inner debates and what he desired to bring to his people. The words, these are the high-flying cranes. Verily, their intercession is accepted with approval. So think about what this is saying. Right? These are the high-flying cranes, meaning they're like birds. And these birds, because Allah has a location up in heaven, these goddesses are like birds who are intercessors. Their intercession is to be hoped for. Their intercession, they can take your prayers to Allah. So you pray, the goddesses hear your prayers. You can pray to the goddesses. Oh Alat, oh Alusa, oh Manat, please help my daughter, or something like that. You can pray to the goddesses, and the goddesses will then take your prayers to Allah, like birds carrying something away. And so Muhammad delivers this revelation to his followers, saying what? That you can pray. You can pray to three goddesses. And this was originally part of the Quran. This is the Quran, right?
Exactly.
So this was revealed as part of the Quran. And so now notice what we have. One, later he comes back and says, Satan tricked me into doing that. It says Satan cast upon him, right? So Satan tricked Muhammad into delivering these revelations. And it's important to note, he delivers this to his followers bow down, and even the pagans, the polytheists in his tribe, they also bow down in honor of this revelation. So notice what the revelation is. He comes back later and says, hey, you remember when I told you that it's okay to pray to those three goddesses? In other words, when I delivered to you a revelation from God promoting polytheism, he said, Satan tricked me into delivering that revelation. And so that part was taken out of the Quran. It was revealed as part of the Quran, but then he took it back and said Satan inspired that part. There are lots of issues. There are lots of issues here. Notice he couldn't tell the difference between a revelation from God and a revelation from Satan. He couldn't tell the difference. Other people couldn't. So supposedly this miraculous literary miracle where what God writes is so clearly different from anything a creature could write that it's obviously distinguished. No one noticed any of that. No one said, hey, that part isn't as good as these other verses of the Quran. So there are multiple problems with this, but the one we're focusing on, according to Muhammad himself, he delivered a revelation that didn't come from God. It actually came from Satan. And he promoted polytheism among his followers. And he said, because remember, the verse in Deuteronomy, the prophet who speaks presumptuously in my name, which I have not commanded him to speak, that prophet shall die. Watch, this is a quotation from Muhammad in the History of At-Tabari, Volume 6, page 111. Anyone can look it up. Muhammad said, after all this entire situation, he said, quote, I have fabricated things against God and have imputed to him words which he has not spoken. What's Muhammad say? I delivered a revelation that didn't come from God. Right. I fabricated
He's trying to defend, basically what happened.
Yeah. So according to Muhammad himself, he cannot be a prophet according to Deuteronomy 18:18, because the criteria for a false prophet just 2 verses later rule him out as a true prophet. And why is this interesting? Well, don't Muslims claim to respect Moses?
You better believe it.
Yep.
Muslims claim to respect Moses, and Moses says that prophet has to, God says in the revelation of Moses, that prophet has to die. Meaning, if Muhammad had delivered this revelation during the time of Moses, and not surrounded by a bunch of pagans who are bowing down in honor of his polytheistic verses, Moses would have told the people, everyone pick up stones and stone this man to death.
Kill him.
And this is the passage where Muslims are going to, saying, you see, this proves that Islam. No, the passage, if you read the entire passage and you understand anything about Islamic history and Muhammad delivering revelations that he later came back and said the devil tricked him into doing it, if you read these passages, Muhammad is the last person in all of history who could have fulfilled this prophecy. And so Muslims are going to a verse that specifically, in context, in the passage,